Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner from the Break It Down Show doing today's intro. Our guest today is a return guest, Richard Bronson. He is the CEO and founder of 70 Million Jobs. Let's see, how can we describe this? Richard was a partner at Stratton Oakmont, which was the firm that had the Wolf of Wall Street film made about it. Yeah, so Richard went to prison for a while to make right for what he had done wrong. And as he was getting ready to get out, about 2 months prior, he realized, I have no money, no job, no home. What am I going to do? And, here he is, this educated dude that knows how to make money, that had made partner in a firm. And if he's got problems, what on earth is everybody else going to do? So Richard started 70 Million Jobs to go ahead and get the formerly incarcerated employed and working. And man, has it ever worked. They have placed people at major companies, Denny's, Uber, Purdue Chickens, Sketcher, Jack in the Box, on and on. These guys really do some incredible things with preventing recidivism. You're going to enjoy this. We had a chance, and he works in Santa Monica now. How sweet is that? We had a chance to sit down at Barney's Beanery and grab this show. I know you're going to love it, and you'll be fascinated by how Richard sees the world. A couple real quick things. One, send me your pictures. If you're listening to the show, I want to make a fan graphic. Even if it's not you, it's where you're from, or the street sign, or the city sign of where you're from. That's fine. But I want to start making this graphic so I can represent who we all are, because this is our show. The next thing, of course, as you know, savethebrave.org. Hit the donate tab. Put a small dollar amount in there, and we will be golden. We'll put that money to work helping save veterans' lives from PTSD. We're actually laying a veteran to rest this week who lost the battle with PTSD and committed suicide. So let's do what we can to try to keep these guys alive and just help them turn their lives around. It's so achievable. Let's do it. All right, here we go. Talking about second chances, well, it's Richard Bronson.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland. This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hi, I'm Richard Bronson. I'm the founder and CEO of 70 Million Jobs, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show. Hi, I'm Richard Bronson. I'm the founder and CEO of 70 Million Jobs, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
Yes, we're at Barney's Beanery, where we like to record in lovely Santa Monica. It's a little bit steamy out today, so I'm a touch sweaty. And we're going to have a chat because we've not caught up in a while. I can't wait to get the Prison Chronicles project done, which you're a part of, and you talk about your time in the Federal Penal Institution, but also now with your work with 70 Million Jobs and helping people transition from being incarcerated to being, what would you say, like, what's the ultimate goal? To being, I always say contributing member of society, but that seems like too low of a bar.
Oh, I don't think it's low at all.
Okay, perfect.
I thought if you've ever been incarcerated, merely being unincarcerated
It's good.
or disincarcerated is a significant enough event.
Perfect.
But for sure, I experienced firsthand the challenges of being released from prison and trying to find one's way productively in society. And for me, it was very, very difficult, and I was only incarcerated a couple of years. And further, for me, here I am, a white male in white corporate America with a college education.
Yeah.
A lot of people have it a lot tougher than I do. Many of the guys I was in prison with were young men of color with limited education, limited job experience.
Yeah.
What chances would they really have once they got out? And as I later learned, the answer is not many.
Yeah. So when you guys go out, you're trying to find companies that will consider hiring these guys.
Yes.
And is that even with their limited, professional capacity or is there a training program to kind of bridge them into certain things or?
We don't offer training. We, however, work with about 500 local nonprofits and community organizations that do.
Okay.
And, when someone comes out of prison, particularly if they've been down for a while, it's not uncommon for them to have a whole lot of issues that they need to address before they even have a remote chance of being a viable employee, a viable, successful employee very often they have substance abuse issues or mental health issues or housing. Pretty much all of them have housing issues,
Right.
family issues. I can go on and on. And, typically it requires a significant commitment on their part, to really address them. And it requires generally involvement in an organization or community or program that takes time. It could be a year, it could be 2 years long. And it's typically a bricks and mortar thing where they're really interacting with people and they're not feeling like they have nowhere to go with their problems or that they alone are experiencing them. So generally speaking, we look for people who have gone through that already so that, we feel that they have a much better chance of being successful on the job.
Yeah, that community building part, it seems to be, from working on the Prison Chronicles, I'm starting to understand that every prison system is different, every prison is different, every state is different, and then federal is nothing like the state system. So you have all these, like all social problems are multivariate problems. So you have all these different avenues for a product to sell these people. And then you have to get them to a baseline, whether it's computer programming or driving a truck. Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from the Break It Down Show, checking in real quick to ask you this. John, Scott, and I all support Save the Brave with our time, our location, our effort, and our money. Each month we give a small amount. Do the same with us. Go to SaveTheBrave.org, click on the Donate tab, pick an amount that you want to come out each month, and they will handle all the rest. I stand behind these folks. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show. And then you have to get them to a baseline, whether it's computer programming or driving a truck. They all need to be in some state of ready to go because the CEO of the trucking company is like, whatever, I'm ready to give them a chance, but they have to be able to drive a truck every damn time there's a route.
Yeah, what you just said is very, very true and often either ignored or it's just not considered. You're absolutely right that the experience for people in the criminal justice system as prisoners, really varies dramatically. And as you say, there's a difference between state and federal. And then there's municipal, which is typically jails, which are much more transient.
Hopefully.
Well, they're definitely transient. They may be, kind of like they're in and out, on a turnstile, but, theoretically, they're for shorter periods of time. They're often for people who didn't make bail, or some technical violation of their probation or something like that. But, it really, what you bring up begs the question, at the end of the day, what do we expect? Forget about right or wrong.
Yeah.
Forget about if maybe you think everyone who's committed a crime is a rotten person or amoral, or maybe they're not that, but listen, I'd much rather be concerned about people who didn't break the law. Aren't they more deserving?
Yeah.
That they weren't tempted to be greedy or stupid or whatever, which is what my problem was.
Right.
Aren't they more worthy of our concern and care? And I could see that argument being very, very valid. But at the end of the day, someone comes out of prison or jail, they have to do something. I mean, does anyone really argue the fact that they need a job?
Right.
That we don't want them on welfare, we don't want them accepting food stamps, we don't want them begging for money on the street. They need to get a job. So the question is what kind of job can they get?
Yeah.
If they have no skill because they were arrested as a youth and spent most of their life in prison, and they don't have a marketable legal skill that's available to them, or they don't have the education, what do we really expect them to do?
Yeah.
They must eat. They must put a roof over their head, and very often they have a family. They must feed their kids. They're either going to get a job, and hopefully they'll do well with that, and statistically the odds are excellent that if they get a job, they're never going to get in trouble again. Or contrary-wise, they don't have a job, they need money, they will get, 80% of them will be rearrested within a couple of years because they had to do something. It really, if you want to really take it to even a further extent, which is not the average person certainly, but there are people who have committed murders and who have committed rapes and people who are sexual predators, people that I think are terrible, terrible people. and that I don't feel any particular degree of compassion for. But even them, they leave prison and jail.
Yeah.
What do we really want to do with them? Either we kill them,
Yeah.
we keep them in prison forever, or we give them an opportunity to work. And that is just business reality. So let's not kid ourselves.
It seems, well, no, it doesn't seem. It is a fact that when these guys get out, most prisoners get out with less than $1,000 in their pocket.
Much less.
And what, like, it shouldn't be worse. Like, one of the guys who's on the Prison Chronicles says a great thing. It's like, this is the biggest moment of your life, your most successful thing. You've graduated from high school finally, always everything, and now you're going to be a free man or woman. And then you realize, oh shit, my situation is so worse. I don't have a place to live reliably, or I've got to live in a halfway house away from my family, and I don't really have a job, or the job I have is garbage. Like, no one wants this job. And so your situation goes to something you know and is reliable and you can count on to left to your own devices with not a lot of safety net.
Yeah. You know something? I mean, my situation was certainly not the average one in that I used to make a lot of money. I used to work on Wall Street. That's how I got in trouble. And I used to lead a very, very glamorous, luxurious life. But I went through the criminal justice system and I came out of prison with nothing. And you're 100% right. I mean, it's very interesting, the experience of going to prison, in that at a certain point, once you get kind of familiar with the environment, it's very relaxing in a way. Because you have no worries and no cares and no decisions really to make of any importance. So you're able to work out every day and lay in the sun and do your job and read, and I play guitar, and it was not the worst life. If there were a few more women around and the food was better, you know, you might actually once a year go on vacation like that. But about two or 3 months prior to my release, as the reality began to seep in that I was going to be free again, it started hitting me, what am I going to do? And for me, it was a source of great anxiety because I had no job now. I had no money at all. I would be coming out of prison essentially homeless and destitute.
Right.
And I knew that a lot of my friends who I had counted on to be in my corner through thick and thin, they deserted me.
Right.
And, you know, people didn't want to be around me because I was radioactive or because, you know, and I'm not a young guy. So who wants to be around who wants to hire an older guy? It freaked me out. And I came out of prison and it was incredibly hard for me to figure out what to do. And I was tempted to do some bad things at a certain point.
Yeah.
I go, you know something? I know other people, they've gotten out. They don't seem to mind. Their morality doesn't stand in their way. They got up and make money. And I considered that, and it really, you know, it really felt wrong to me. And yet, what can I do? And I spent several years knocking around trying to figure out what to do with myself, and nothing seemed right. Eventually, I got very lucky, and I began working at a nonprofit that's in the reentry space. And that happens to be something that I advise a lot of people who are coming out of prison, is that the nonprofit area, particularly reentry, there are opportunities there.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have some prior business experience. Because, you know, if you can help them raise money, for example, there's always a place for you. And obviously the fact that you have a record is not going to be an impediment, generally. So I did that, and that really sort of got my feet back on the feet, squarely underneath me. And, you know, I felt like then I could make some decisions long term that would make sense. But for me, and again, I didn't have it that bad. I was only down for a couple of years. There are guys who go away for 20 years that have they go away when they're 17, 18 years old, and they come out when they're 40.
Yeah.
They've never had a mobile phone. They've never played on a computer. They don't know any of this stuff. They maybe have never gone out on a date, you know, and all of a sudden they come out with no money in their pocket or a couple of dollars. Their friends are long gone. Their family has long abandoned them. There really is no safety net. So definitely getting involved in one of these nonprofits is a great idea. It's a community, and it'll help you. It's not the answer long term, but short term it definitely is.
Yeah. So this community thing of building that, obviously you're trying to find them jobs. You're trying to connect them to resources that help them bridge that gap. But what about just like the, the fellowship part, like helping them find new friends? All your old friends have gone, they abandoned you, you're radioactive. How do you find people that have lead suits that can hang out with you?
You know something? That's not where I saw an opportunity. Working on the nonprofit side, there's lots and lots of organizations, probably thousands of them, that if you are sincere and motivated, you can find that sort of community. I think finding it is important. Our role is to take those people who have managed to stay out of trouble for a couple of years, who have been through one of these programs, but just don't know where they can get a job.
Yeah.
And they've had the door slammed in their face 10 times. I want to help those people.
Okay.
They're deserving, but more importantly, if we get them at a company, they're going to do well there. And when they do well there, that company is going to come back to us and say, get us more just like them. That's our goal.
One of the things I want to ask you, we just had lunch at Barney's Beanery, so if it seems disjointed, that's why. When the inmate, the ex-con, what's the proper nomenclature?
Formerly incarcerated
When the
person.
formerly incarcerated person comes to 70 million jobs, do they just fill out an application thing? But here's the thing that I've realized is, as a service member, I apply for something I'm totally qualified for, and I get nothing back. Or maybe I get a robot that's like, beep, do not apply. Like I don't ever get a call from somebody. So that makes me feel hopeless, makes me want to jump off a bridge, and damn near killed me when I was transitioning from the military to regular life. So how do you guys receive these queries that come in?
It's a great question, and it's interesting that there are many similarities between the formerly incarcerated's pursuit of a job and an ex-military person's pursuit of a job.
Right.
I actually have on my advisory board a guy who used to run the most heavily trafficked website for employment for military people. And he told me, he said, expect that you're going to have to hold a lot of hands along the way because your people really just don't know what's involved and how to go about doing it, pursuing a legitimate job. And I said, well, what does that have to do with the military? He goes, I have, current colonels who have been to war and have commanded tens of thousands of soldiers and billions of dollars worth of equipment and armaments, but they've never once gone on a job interview.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how to go about doing it, how to market themselves. And it's almost like, he goes, we have job fairs, and it's almost like they're kids at their first junior prom where the boys are on one side and the girls on the other. We have to bring these people, national heroes, over to an employer because they feel so awkward about approaching them on their own. We get people who come to us a variety of ways. Some will just discover online and they'll create an account. They go to 70millionjobs.com and we will reach out to them and we will definitely acknowledge the fact that they've been there and that, we've gotten their submittal and that we're going to help them look for a job, and we begin sending them alerts about available positions. But far more are sent to us by our network of like 500 nonprofits and community organizations. Literally, we've had millions of people sent to us because we're known as the organization that has the jobs. And, what's interesting about this population is that in general, they want to keep their head below the radar. Yeah. If you've been in prison or if you've gotten in trouble with the law, you know exactly what I mean. It feels like you can never get out of it. You're always kind of one dirty look away from getting in trouble again. You say the wrong comment to the wrong cop after having that one extra beer, they look you up and immediately your hands are behind your back, and it happens all so quickly. So as a result, understandably, these folks want to stay away from attention. And in a way that hurts their opportunities, because these are folks who don't want to be tracked. They don't want to be contacted. They're suspicious when a stranger is calling them on their phone. What's this about? If they have any doubt, they're just going to run away from it. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I've been in that position myself. But in a way that really hurts them, because we're reaching out and often calling them. So typically for us, it takes maybe 10 attempts before they realize who we are and what our angle is.
Yeah.
We don't charge them a penny. There's nothing they can give us other than the satisfaction of knowing we help them.
Yeah.
It's companies that pay us. They don't pay us a penny. So ultimately, the word gets out and they become available.
So in effect, you're a recruiting firm.
We're a recruiting firm, we're a staffing firm, we're a job board.
Right.
We have those three different businesses that operate all a little bit differently.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's a marketplace that puts together this huge pool of talent, which is generally ignored. My people have never heard of, Monster.com or Indeed, and they don't know what they're doing typically. But we know how to talk to them. We've learned how to market to them. And we give these big companies, and something, I'd like to say it was because I was so smart, but I launched the company just when the United States was going into a historic time of low unemployment among the population. It's at like a 50-year low among the general population. So companies right now are sitting with, I read, about 9 million unfilled jobs.
Jesus.
And that many jobs really costs them dearly. So there are companies that are desperate to fill the positions, particularly some of these businesses experience terrible turnover. So they're constantly having to hire. And, because they've typically been going after the same people over and over, competition is fierce, it's more expensive. We give them access to people that haven't been picked over their bones, and it's a lot less expensive to hire them. And the amazing thing at the end of the day is how well they do on the job.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. What do the numbers say? Like, obviously, in terms of criminality, you do age out of most of it if you're given a chance. And I think that's probably part of the reason why once they have a job, they do better, because they're not 22 years old and crazy. They're 35 and I'm ready to, I don't need
serious.
that. Yeah. So obviously that makes a lot of sense, but how do they perform?
Well, it's interesting. The International Trade Organization for Human Resource Professionals, the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM.
Okay.
And most of the HR professionals at big companies are members.
Okay.
And SHRM just came out with a report whereby they found that among their members, as far as the people who are actually responsible for doing the hiring managers at big companies, 82% of them believe that the quality of hire when hiring someone with a record is as good as, if not better, than hiring someone without a record. And not only that, but their retention is better. They stick around longer, which is a real critical element in the HR world. The reason is, it may sound counterintuitive, but the reason is that the people I work with don't have many options. Like when you have too many options, it kind of gets you into trouble.
Yeah.
If there are too many dates available, you're going to break a lot of hearts and probably end up alone come Saturday night. When there are too many jobs available, you're going to jump around from one to another and never take any one of them real seriously. My people, on the other hand, have very few options. So if they find something that's reasonably good, they're not going to screw it up. They're going to make it work, and they're going to stick around. And what this ends up doing to the company is, first of all, the workforce is proud of the fact that their company went out on a limb for someone who really did need a second chance. They gave somebody a break. It makes a big company seem like they have a heart.
Right.
And it sends that message to the communities and the towns and cities in which they do business. And we hear that it improves in general, morale and
Makes
how
sense.
the workforce works by having these people around.
Yeah.
Because my people, when they show up to work, they are appreciative. They know somebody went out on a limb,
Yeah.
and they reward that company with their loyalty, an old-fashioned concept.
There's also that whole thing. I know I say this as a combat guy is, hey, there's no one trying to shoot me today. I don't fear emailing Tom Hanks. It's not scary to me. It can't be because people try to kill me.
Yeah.
So it's got to be
Better than that.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, Tom Hanks isn't going to try to kill me. He might say no, or he might ignore me. But okay. But it's got to be the same way with these guys. I mean, they always say like, "There's no time invented that I can't handle." All of it's going to be better. Like
It's true.
You work at Walmart corporate. Like this is way better than fill in
true.
the blank.
It's true. It's such a funny thing. When I got out of prison, when you talk to people who've been in prison, particularly when they first come out, you're constantly comparing every situation to what it was in prison. I remember the number one thing that I experienced was in prison, you never go take a shower with bare feet. You always wear flip-flops because God only knows what's on that floor. So you're wearing flip-flops. To go somewhere, a home or wherever you're taking a shower once you've been out, and to do it with bare feet, you go, man, this is a pleasure that I haven't had in a long time. But it's absolutely true. No matter what food you eat,
Yeah.
no matter what they have you doing, no matter how awful your boss is, it's better than prison.
Yeah.
It's better than prison in general. It's better because your boss is better than the guard. The food is always better than it was in prison.
Right.
Let's face it. Get the hell out of prison.
Yeah.
The idea that I'm committed to is keep people out of prison,
yeah.
keep them from going back.
Well, I wanted to bring it. So I'm working on the Prison Chronicles, and hopefully it'll be out sometime this fall is what I'm hoping for. But one of the things that I heard from someone, as a female, and she not an inmate, but she goes into San Quentin, like one of the full of horrible murderers, And she said the people that I encounter, the inmates, the currently incarcerated, they say her opinion is these are the most well-adjusted people that I've ever worked with professionally, and I've worked with all kinds of startups. And you know the Bay Area, you've been up there. There's a lot of people that want to bend over backwards to make you feel welcome and comfortable. And she's like, that's nothing compared to what these guys are, because they've been forced, in the case of what they do there, they've been forced to deal with their demons. They've been forced to go through group therapy, and they do all this self-work, for 20, 25 years. And now on the other end of it, they're like, yeah,
That's so true.
Yes.
I have come to know, and I, in my life, I never thought I'd be saying these words, but I've come to know so many murderers.
Yeah.
People who have been in prison for 30, 35 years, and I will tell you that they are among the wisest, kindest, most understanding, deepest, heaviest, nicest people you could possibly imagine. The wisdom that they have gained. It's kind of like if they were, a yogi sitting in a cave for 30 years meditating. That's sort of what they've done. And they have seen it all, and they've gone through it all, and they've come out of it. And when they smile, it consumes their entire face. And you talk to them, and you would think they would be bitter, and they'd be angry, and they would be incapable of being, personable. And it's just the opposite. They are so considerate and caring and insightful. And I got news for you. I would hire them in a second. Also, murderers typically only commit murder once.
Yeah.
Among the pantheon of crimes to commit, for example, me as a white-collar criminal, I'm the worst.
Yeah.
We always think, well, next time I'll be smarter, and they got lucky when they caught me, but this time I got it figured out. So white-collar criminals repeat constantly. People who are guilty of sexual, crimes, they recidivate frequently. But people who commit murders, typically there's a very specific situation. They were in a gang, and they were just told, you got to kill this guy or else you're going to be killed, so they do it. But that's not something that they do as a thing. I mean, I'm not talking about serial killers. There aren't that many of them.
Yeah.
I don't know those people. I'm talking about anybody else. They're just and I'll even tell you another thing. We're often asked to help folks who were improperly incarcerated, wrongfully incarcerated, and did 30 years in prison for a murder they didn't commit.
Yeah.
And then they're exonerated at a certain point, from DNA evidence or whatever. And you would think if anybody would be bitter
Yeah.
and awful and angry, and yet just the opposite.
Yeah.
These are inspiring people. They're heroic. I'll go that far. And to be around them,
Yeah.
you feel like what a blessing, what an opportunity. It's amazing.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
What an opportunity. It's amazing.
From talking to a bunch of those the formerly incarcerated, I've realized also that they have like a sense of time that's different than everybody else. Like one of the questions I like to ask is, when did you turn the corner away from anger, and when did you start like just investing in yourself, and you knew that you're like, no matter what happens to me, if I never get out, I'm going to focus on being this version of me. And then they spend 10, 15 years doing that, and they're like, now I'm ready for anything. And it might take them a while to get there.
Right. Again, I was only... Well, first let me just say, I have no excuse for the things I did. And even though some of them, we're talking about I did them 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning to this day, having paid everyone back and having done my time, I still wake up every morning ashamed and depressed and sad by the things that I did, because that's not why I think I was put on this earth.
Right.
So even while I was committing the crimes, I knew it was wrong.
Right.
But I still did it, so I got no excuse.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but in 2 years that I was in prison, I was just focused on getting through and getting out. It took me a while upon being released to recognizing that my calling in life had been made visible to me. That the only thing that I could be doing of significance, the only business I could build that could be a big business, had to deal with this. Otherwise, no one would ever trust me.
Yeah.
I couldn't raise money from investors. I couldn't enlist the support of other people, because they'd always look at me as a cheat and a crook and a bad guy, which I was. But doing the work I do now, my background... a lot of people think, well, that really gives you insight and understanding. But, something, I wish it were not so. I'll die feeling ashamed of a lot of my life.
Yeah.
But that's why I work so hard to try to help people. It's my karma that's at stake.
Yeah, your karma. Is this what you're put on the earth to do? Did you have to
This
go
is
through
what
that?
I was put on this earth to
and
do.
that trial was what you had to go through to do it.
Listen, I have a big ego, and probably 99% of my ego is just bullshit, which is what ego is. But I always felt, from the time I was a little kid, that I was put on this earth for a reason.
Yeah.
And when I found myself ripping people off and doing bad things, I couldn't jive that with my own impression of myself, which was a lot better and a lot different.
Right.
And that's called cognitive dissonance. You're doing it's like smoking. You know
Yeah.
it's bad, but you do it.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing was bad, and yet I did it. I am in a race. I'm 65 years old.
Yeah.
I am in a race to do as much good as I can, because I want to go to heaven.
Yeah.
And I want to make amends, and I want to, do the right thing. So this definitely was not made available to me or obvious to me until I was out of prison for a little while.
Yeah.
Because there was a part of me that felt like, well, let's go right back to that life.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The powers that be said, nope, that ain't happening. Figure something else out.
Did it require luck and some things out of your control to get you on this better path?
I believe in a perpetual state of luck.
Okay.
There's a Yiddish expression that goes, man plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
Nothing about my life was ever part of a plan.
Yes.
Or anything that I would ever expect or foresee. Nothing at all. I've never, ever planned that way. I know a lot of people do. I just wake up every morning. I try to hit a home run in everything I do. When you do that, when you swing for the seats, you're going to strike out a lot. I've struck out a lot. I've had a lot of success. And I've just found that weird shit just happens to me. When we're done talking, Pete, I'm going to turn the corner. And I'm telling you, anything could happen when I turn that corner.
Yes.
Someone may come up to me and say, we'd like you to run for president. I believe in the magic of impossibility.
Yeah. Yeah, and 3 years from now, you should be able to look and go, I have no idea how all this happened. You know, as long as you're working.
I feel that way today.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea. I can't explain it, and therefore I can't explain what will happen. I assume it's just going to be another weird chapter in a weird life.
What are your thoughts on, so I talked to a lot of young people from high school trying to advise them, like, I'm you from the future. What questions do you want to ask? And I try to illustrate to them, when you're looking forward, you think you see the path. There's some boulders. There's a vulture that's going to try to claw your eyes out, might get one of your eyes. You're going to look back on your path and go, that wasn't the path I thought it was going to be, but this one makes sense. Why is it that the path looking back makes sense, even as impossible and how many times you should have died along the path? But when you look forward, you just can't see more than 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's been a lot of wisdom, that has addressed those issues, including wisdom is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
My advice to people in general is for the reasons that you just gave, because there's just no way of knowing.
Yeah.
And the things that you worry about are never the things. We're not killed. We're not murdered. We commit suicide.
Yeah.
It's from within us that we screw up our life. It's not from the outside generally.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. So what I tell everybody is, whatever you're thinking, whatever you want to do, whatever you'd like to pursue, stop thinking about it, stop analyzing it, and just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. I don't mean to be a commercial for a well-known brand, but I believe that greatness is the providence of not people who are great, but people who, when the deal goes down, just said, okay, I'm in. And I believe, and I think that's where, in the military, that's where greatness comes from. That my dad used to tell me about the Marines. He said, the guys you never expected, they didn't have any plan to be a hero.
Yeah.
It just happened, and it just did it. And their life was never the same thereafter, if they still had a life. And I believe this is the exact same thing in life. Just do it.
Yeah.
And that's the only difference between people who have achieved and people who haven't, is that the people who are great, when the moment came, just said, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say, like, the default should be, like, your default verb is do, default to action, and then twist your knob from perfection to production. You can always readjust along the way, because sometimes perfection is required. But,
At Facebook, they say that perfection is the enemy of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to get it perfect, which is almost impossible to ever feel that sense of satisfaction, you're always going to continue analyzing and worry about it and ask for another opinion, and you're going to be taken off in another direction. I just say go for it. Now, that's me.
Yeah.
But that attitude has meant that I've never been married, and I have no kids. And I'm, in a certain respect, I'm still like a child.
Yeah.
Because I have a very kind of what the hell, high risk kind of approach to life.
Right.
But that's been who I am, for better or for worse.
Yeah, it's brought you here to this point on your path where you're supposed to be. Talk to me about the CEOs and the HR folks that you encounter, and when you pitch this impossible thing, like, hey, I got a whole bunch of murderers that you're going to love having work for your company.
Well, I think it's fairly easy to see why you're not a professional salesman, because that would not be the approach I would take. Indeed, most companies have no tolerance to hire a murderer or a rapist or a sexual predator. They're just complete non-starters.
Right.
I never would lead with that.
Sure, clearly.
Rather, our prison population exploded in this country in the 70s and the 80s with our war on drugs.
Yeah.
Get tough, longer prison sentences, more jail cells. That's the way we can win in the war on drugs. I think at this point most people would agree that this war hasn't gone so well and we lost the war. This is not the approach to be taking. What I discover, and I think this is true of people in general, and I think I dare say that this is one of the things that makes our country great, and that despite the efforts of certain people in control who would undermine the things that make our country really great, is that there's a sense of we all deserve a second chance, that we all have screwed up, that we all have been in a position where we made a stupid mistake. We had one extra beer and got behind the wheel of the car, and the cop just happened to pull us over, and now we're in prison.
Yeah.
Could have been they got the car in front of you, but it was this time, and it's not like you're an immoral person, and it's not like you committed, that you went to some Walmart and killed 30 people, but you made a mistake. You did something foolish, and now you're paying for it. Or a businessman who takes his family out for dinner and then writes that off as a business expense on their taxes. I don't know a businessman who doesn't do that. A few of them get caught.
Yeah.
And then they're an immoral, awful person.
Right.
Morality, something I believe and something I think I've learned, certainly by going to prison, morality is rarely that binary, black and white.
Yeah.
It's gradations. I think there are bad people out there for sure, but most people, that I come across, certainly ones who want to get a job, are people who made a mistake. And they made it at the wrong time, or they didn't have the benefit like I did of parents who could afford a good lawyer, or being white. They made the mistake of being black and getting caught, and felt the racism that's inherent in our criminal justice system. I think that has a lot to do with how things play out.
Yeah, that.
I think you disagree with certain things I just said.
No. Actually, I was trying to think of how to phrase this comment because
I think that's what makes our country great.
Yeah,
is what I was saying.
Well, I often think about what is the American dream, and I hear all this nonsense that we're anti-immigration or something like that. I'm like, I love every immigrant that wants to come. You want to bet your life and your savings and your family's well-being on coming here,
and you're willing to break your back to pick the avocados and the lettuce that nobody else wants to pick, and you're willing to do it for almost nothing?
Yeah.
I don't get that. I don't get... who do we expect is going to do this?
Yeah.
And I got news for you. My parents would have done anything for their children to give them a better life. I don't know why that's wrong.
Yeah.
Why do we demonize these people?
I think that is the American dream, right? The ability to improve the situation that you're in, whether you are born here or you risk it all to come here. I mean, you've been in the Silicon Valley. How many people did you meet from other countries that are like, fuck it, I can't do this in Brazil. I can't do this in whatever the country, but I can do it here. And they come here despite all the odds. Like this, some people are kind of weird about it, but they don't see what we see, the opportunities that are there.
I don't blame a single person. Travel in Europe for a while, which I've done, and listen to the music they're listening to.
Yeah.
And look at the clothes that they're wearing.
Yes.
And look at the food that the kids are eating for lunch. It's all American.
Yeah.
It's all this idealized version. You live in Anaheim.
Yeah.
How many people come to Disneyland to have a taste of American culture? Everyone is right.
Yeah.
And people love it. And it sickens me, it disheartens me that all of this incredible, heart that we have and goodwill, we're like pissing it away for stupid reasons, for ego and narcissism. What I think is great about this country is that what my grandparents, when they came here from Eastern Europe, they came here for the same reasons that they
Yeah.
come from Honduras.
Yeah.
They wanted to escape the oppression. They didn't want the Nazis were going to kill them. They wanted their kids to have a chance to go to college and have a better life than them. I don't see how we can possibly demonize that, and then erode.
I think we politicize it more than we demonize it, and we use it as a means.
When you put
to,
a child in a cage,
yeah, that's horrible.
that's demonic.
Yeah.
That to me is so beyond the pale.
It's. I wish that I don't want to get us derailed, but I wish that Congress would own up to its responsibility, because that's a legislature problem, and the president aside, go pass some legislation, put it on his desk, and force him to sign something.
Well, I think there's someone in the Senate whose interests coincide with our president,
Yeah.
and they're working in cahoots to
Yeah,
ensure
yeah.
that doesn't happen.
Yeah. But in general, Congress's approval rating is really lower than the president's, and we all know that the president at best is challenging to people. Let me get back on topic though. So you're sitting across from these CEOs, and you're saying these guys, when you hire them, they stay. They're desperate for this chance, and that's what you're getting. Or what do you say? Like, when they have an objection, like, hey, these people are dangerous, what are you saying to them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I understand that there are negative biases that are out there.
Right.
I felt it personally, and I have felt it towards others, so I understand how someone could feel this way. But what we actually experience is something very, very different. Through the war on drugs, it used to be that we thought of that nice people would think of people who were in jail or prison as animals. They committed some terrible crime, lock them up and throw away the key.
Right.
Politicians would never want to come out to help or prison reform because they didn't want to expend political capital to be seen as being weak on crime. But something happened in the 70s and the 80s, and that was the war on drugs. And now all of a sudden we saw nice college kids from white family, upper middle class, working class and upper middle class white families.
Yeah.
They were being arrested. And our uncle and our brother was being thrown in prison. And all of a sudden, it wasn't them versus us. Them became us.
Yeah.
Them is us. And when them is us, when the enemy is actually a member of your family, you have two things to do. You either disown that person, or you somehow or another accommodate the fact that they made a mistake, but you know them truly how they really are, that they're not an evil person. I think so many people have had direct connection to the criminal justice system, directly or indirectly. 1 in 3 adults has a record. 1 in 3 adults. So almost everybody has had their life touched by this. And when that happens, it's no longer, you're a monster. You're someone who made mistakes.
Yeah.
You're someone who needs help. You're someone who needs a second chance. And when you start looking at things like that, which is how a lot of HR professionals who are in the business of working with people, and they're drawn because they are people, they understand it. They have compassion.
Yeah.
Because they know, if they're honest, that they probably have had to ask for a second chance or forgiveness.
Right.
It's I don't know what religion doesn't believe in giving a second chance. I think they all do.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to buy into that, then really, who are you kidding? What are you? You're the biggest hypocrite in the world.
Yeah.
In which case, I don't know what to say.
So you guys have been at this for a while. You've been on the show before. You're going to be on the Prison Chronicles if we were interviewed from that. But what's coming up for you guys? I mean, you're down here now in the Silicon. Are you Silicon Beach? Is that what you guys are calling yourselves, or
No.
just L.A.?
LA.
So you're in L.A. now. I mean, that's a big move already. Where are we at, and where are we going?
We moved to LA because LA is arguably ground zero for reentry. There are more incarcerated people here than any other city in the United States, and more formerly incarcerated. And I have partnered with the city of LA in the past to try to help address the problems of unemployment and recidivism among the formerly incarcerated. So that's why we're here. That and the fact that the weather is great, and I'd like to be in the movies. I'll be honest. Our goal is we want to get 1 million people jobs because we think if we do that, we will have eradicated recidivism. So that's our goal. And every day we come to work, and pretty much every day we're getting people jobs. Some days we get a lot of them, some days not so much. But it's pretty clear, what we're aiming to do. And every day it's a challenge, and every day it's new and interesting. But I will tell you, I'm not a very optimistic person by nature, but I am optimistic about all of this. Attitudes have changed dramatically in the 15 years since I've been released from prison, and I see that continuing. The one thing that our president has done that I admire is he enacted federal legislation that freed a lot of people who deserve to be freed.
Yeah.
And I see lots of laws changing, and I think it's all good. So I think the future looks good, and we aim to be part of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good aim, and it's a good mission to be able to help folks out who need help, because if you haven't needed help along the way, you are the exception by far.
Absolutely. And I hope you won't be calling me sometime in the future saying, something, I never got it before, but now I do. Help.
So, let's do some people the service, because everybody does know somebody who's going to need help like that you guys provide. So how close to release do you need to be before they reach out? If you've got someone who's been out for a while and is struggling or wants to get a better job, talk to us about those things.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody who's been released is either unemployed, underemployed.
Yeah.
In other words, if they didn't have a conviction, they could have gotten a better job. And then for those few people who are happily employed, I guess you could say, we want to contact them all to let them know of opportunities that may exist. And if you've got a great job, it's not the worst thing for you to hear that somebody else. It's good for your self-esteem to know that somebody would like you. We specialize, as I mentioned, though, in people who have been out for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But we do get a lot of people and a lot of prison systems that will contact us to let us know of people who are coming out. And, the first thing that I would suggest for them is and we'll refer them to some organization that's going to help them address those demons that need to be addressed. The goal is not to get a job and get fired the second day.
No? Oh.
No. The job is to get a job and live happily ever after. And that's the kind of outcome we're looking for. So we can help them find the right place. If they've been out for a little while and they're frustrated, definitely they should contact us. They can just write. They can go to our website, 70millionjobs.com, or info@70millionjobs.com, and we will respond very, very quickly. And we don't guarantee that we can help everybody, but we do guarantee we'll try to help everybody.
If you could change one thing about the path on 70 Million Jobs coming up from the beginning, back when before we even met, what would you change about how you've approached this thing?
I don't believe in those.
No? Okay.
In answering those questions. People ask me about my life, and you know something?
And I wasn't going down that road. That's in terms of the entrepreneurial path. Is there anything?
Again, I think you need to learn things, and I think making mistakes is an integral part of getting to wherever you're going.
Absolutely.
And if I didn't make the mistakes, I wouldn't have learned from the mistakes.
Yeah.
So I don't look about, I wish I had done this or that. The only thing I do that about is there was this girl in college. She was really pretty, and she kind of flirted with me, and I was so embarrassed or shy that I didn't pursue it. And only in retrospect do I realize that she was flirting with me, and I blew that opportunity. That's literally the one thing in my life that I wish I could do over.
Well, that counts. I mean, and it's focused on fear, right? Like you had a fear that was unreasonable.
I had a fear. And I mean, God only knows what it could have led to.
Yeah.
Probably nothing good.
And if she would have laughed in your face today, you'd be like, and then she laughed in my face.
It would have been a good story. I know.
Yeah, we all would have laughed at that.
I know. That's why.
Where do people go to find out more about what you guys do?
70millionjobs.com.
70
the number
million
70 million jobs with an S.com.
Yeah.
And someone will get back to you right away, I promise.